Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on, and talk about some books. It's the beginning of May, happy May, which means it is time for my May reset, my monthly reset video where I take all the books that I've read in April off my TBR card and I put my new May TBR on there just to keep me organized and maybe run you through some key stats. So let's jump straight into a couple of core stats. So in April, I read a total of 15 books, and that is 5,492 pages. So not as good as some previous months, but you know what? I'm happy with that. I had a bit of a slump towards the end of the month, not enjoying a lot of things that I was reading, so I'm happy that I still got that. As for my ratings, I had 2 5 stars, 6 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 3 2 stars, and 1 1 star. And then just up on the screen here is the full graphic, which includes my split of the genres that I read. As you can see, I read mostly fantasy, mystery, and contemporary, with a little bit of mythology and romance sprinkled in there as well. But let's grab all the books off of my TBR card and run you through exactly what I read, what I thought of them, the rating I gave them, and let's put them away. So let's crack straight into the books I read and my one sentence reviews of them. So first I read The Legacy by Elle Kennedy, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. And my one sentence review is a perfectly swoony slash angsty slash smutty ending to the series, as each novella tied up loose ends from the previous books while creating a new storyline for each couple that made this more than just an extended epilogue. Then I attempted to pick up With This Kiss by Carrie Hope Fletcher and DNF'd it, after which I picked up Gallant by V.E. Schwab, which I gave 3 stars. And my one sentence review is, whilst I was obsessed with the artwork and the journal entries included as they heightened the tension significantly, I ultimately couldn't buy into the found family because of a lack of relationship building, or the idea that a girl who had been at Gallant for 5 minutes could solve a problem that generations of priors were baffled by. Then I read Godkiller by Hannah Kaner, which I gave 4 stars, and my one sentence review is, I was simultaneously obsessed with the plot, which set the stakes amazingly in the very first chapter and kept the pace swift for the entire rest of the book, and the characters who were built so fully with such well-constructed arcs that I couldn't help but read this in one day, and I'm now desperately awaiting the sequel. Then I read Really Good Actually by Monica Hasey, and I gave this book 4 stars, and my one sentence review was a fascinating character arc with chapter breaks that had me cackling and a writing style that was so relatable and entertaining, but had me simultaneously hating the main character, sympathizing with her, relating to her, feeling secondhand embarrassment for her, and wanting to give her a hug and or slap her across the face. Then I read Only a Monster by Vanessa Len, which I gave 3 stars, and my one sentence review is a cute YA with characters that acted authentically to their age, a fast-paced plot, a slightly underdeveloped soulmates romance, but well-developed enemies to lovers romance, and a take on the dead/neglectful parents YA stereotype that lent really well-formed logic to the story. Then I read the first book in the Avalon Bay duology, which is Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy, and I gave this book 2 stars, and my one sentence review is a rollercoaster relationship with an aggressive and not in a fun way hero, but a very relatable female lead that had a non-traditional approach to the third act conflict, which I'm not sure I loved, and a very Outer Banks style dispute between the townies and the clones. Then I read the sequel, Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy, which I again gave 2 stars, and my one sentence review is, all in all, the story relied way too heavily on the reader remembering the atmosphere from the previous book, and the hero was too problematic in his thoughts on and actions towards women that I just couldn't enjoy this book as much as I wanted to. Then I read Not a Happy Family by Shari Lapina, which I gave 2 stars, and my one sentence review is a dysfunctional family of epic proportions is fascinatingly uncovered in the murder investigation their parents are at the center of, but are ultimately overshadowed by the numerous near misses relating to the plot, too drawn out, the writing, too repetitive, the cliffhangers, too many, the logic, too flawed, and the murderer's reveal, too late to be suspenseful. Then I reread Heartstopper Volume 1, which I gave 5 stars, and my one sentence review is a beautiful and relatable beginning to such an impactful series that explores coming to terms with your sexual identity, bullying, prejudice, and finding new love in a way that is so authentic and sensitive in its approach to such intimate issues. Then I reread Lore Olympus Volume 1, and my original 3-star rating got boosted up to 5 stars, with my one sentence review being, whilst I'm no expert, the use of artwork to display emotional connection or just emotion in general was absolutely masterful, and the cinnamon bun that was Hades gave such an innocence and naivety to a historically dark character that perfectly matched Persephone's innocence and naivety as well. Then I rounded it out with a 3rd reread, which was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I bumped up my rating to 4 stars from the 3 stars I think it was previously, and my one sentence review is a bully romance reread I didn't expect to enjoy, but then I was ultimately impressed by the character arcs and the growth of Jude and Cardan, the political tension and atmosphere that exploded into a Red Wedding-inspired catalyst, a plot that efficiently set up the tenuous alliances among the Fae, and the hint of a romance that left a cliffhanger I was absolutely captivated by. Then I read This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi, and I gave it 4 stars and clearly loved it so much that I immediately went and bought the sequel, and my one sentence review is one of the most atmospheric things I've ever read, with such vivid imagery and really likable characters who needed no magical training to know they were the boss. Then I attempted to read The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean, and I DNF'd it. Then I read All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace, which I gave 3 stars but really loved, so immediately bought the sequel, of course. And my one sentence review was, whilst predictable in its plot, All the Stars and Teeth had such vivid storytelling, found family style characters, and a beautiful romance that kept me hooked on the read. Then I read Sadie by Courtney Summers, which is an author I'd never really heard of before until Meg with Books talked about her being her favorite author and did the interview with her. I gave this book 4 stars, and my one sentence review is probably the most incredible mixed media murder mystery I have ever read, with POVs that create such a fulsome picture of Sadie and her upbringing, the trauma she faced, her devotion to her sister, and the manifestation of that devotion in her determination for revenge. And then unfortunately I finished the month with my worst read and my only 1 star, which was The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. I have since gotten rid of this book because I don't even want to think about it. And my one sentence review is, I felt personally offended by the representation of Agatha Christie in this story, making her infamous disappearance out to be trivial and able to be entirely resolved by the love of a man, with Nano Day being a saving grace that just wasn't quite logical enough to save the day entirely. So those are all the books that I read and my DNFs for the month of April. Let's put these books away and get out my books for the month of May. Starting with the books that I picked with my most recent TBR game, where I think I brought out again my wheel of TBR, and I definitely want recommendations from you guys of other TBR games I can play. But the first book that I picked was The Ashes of London by Andrew Taylor. As for what this is about, the blurb says, "A city in flames, London 1666. As the Great Fire consumes everything in its path, the body of a man is found in the ruins of St. Paul's Cathedral, stabbed in the neck, thumbs tied behind his back. A woman on the run, James Marwood, the son of a trader, is forced to hunt the killer through the city's devastated streets. There he encounters a determined young woman who will stop at nothing to secure her freedom. A killer seeking revenge. When a second murder victim washes up in the Fleet Ditch, Marwood is drawn into the political and religious intrigue of Westminster and across the path of a killer with nothing to lose." The next book I picked was Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. This is a book I originally missed out on the, I think, Fairy Loot or Illumicrate edition by literally a month because I cancelled my subscription the month before this book was in it. but was still very intrigued by it, so I picked it up from the library. And as for what it's about, it says, history is told by the conquerors. Across the Western world, museums display the spoils of war, of conquest, of colonialism, priceless pieces of art looted from other countries, kept even now. Will Chen plans to steal them back. A senior at Harvard, Will fits comfortably in his carefully curated roles. A perfect student, an art history major, an artist, a perfect son, the American dream. But when a shadowy corporation reaches out with an impossible and illegal job offer, Will finds himself as something else as well. The leader of a heist to steal back 5 priceless Chinese sculptures looted from Beijing centuries ago. His crew is every heist archetype one can imagine, or at least the closest he can get. Each has their own complicated relationship with China and the identity they've cultivated as Chinese Americans. But when Will asks, none of them can turn him down. If they succeed, they earn $50 million and a chance to make history. If they fail, it's not just the loss of everything they've dreamed for themselves, but yet another thwarted attempt to take back what colonialism has stolen. Next up in the game was A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. Love a chance to put a romance in, and as for what this is about, it says, it started with a kiss. Ren Beaumont is beautiful and kind. She always gets good grades and is loved by everyone at Lancaster Prep. Everyone but brooding campus bad boy, Crew Lancaster. Crew is rich and handsome. His life is meant to be easy, but when you have an overbearing father and your family own the school, the pressure to be the best makes life harder than everyone thinks. And he certainly doesn't have time for innocent girls who only care about their classes. Girls like Ren Beaumont. But when unexpected chemistry disrupts psychology class, Ren discovers there's more to life than good grades, and Crew finally understands what it's like to be in love. I think the sequel for this is out as well, so hopefully I love this and can jump straight into the sequel. Next up, I got One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. As you can tell, there's a couple of library books in this stack, I guess. And as for what this is about, it says, Elspeth needs a monster. Their monster might be her. Elspeth Spindle needs more than luck to stay safe in the eerie, mist-locked kingdom of Blunder. She needs a monster. She calls him the Nightmare, an ancient mercurial spirit trapped in her head. He protects her, he keeps her secrets. But nothing comes for free, especially magic. When Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman on the forest road, she is thrust into a world of shadow and deception. Together they embark on a dangerous quest to cure the town of Blunder from the dark magic infecting it. As the stakes heighten and their undeniable attraction intensifies, Elspeth is forced to face her darkest secret yet. The Nightmare is slowly, darkly taking over her mind, and she might not be able to stop him. A maiden must unleash the monster within to save her kingdom in this dark, lush, gothic fantasy debut. And lastly, I got The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, which is the sequel to The Thursday Murder Club, and a series that I loved when I first read it and cannot wait to get stuck into the next one. But as for what this is about, it says, it's the following Thursday. Elizabeth has received a letter from an old colleague, a man with whom she has a long history. He needs her help. His story involves stolen diamonds, a violent mobster, and a very real threat to his life. As bodies start piling up, Elizabeth enlists Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron in the hunt for a ruthless murderer. And if they find the diamonds too, well, wouldn't that be a bonus? But this time they are up against an enemy who wouldn't bat an eyelid at knocking off 4 septuagenarians. Can the Thursday Murder Club find the killer before the killer finds them? So this is my very disorganized pile of the TBR that I got for May. But there are a couple of other books that I want to read as well, so let's get them out. I also want to finish Happy Place by Emily Henry. I started this book right at the end of April before I jumped into a slump, so I need to finish it. Another one I want to read is Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. The cover absolutely jumped out at me when I was at the library. I also want to read Innocent Traitor by Alison Weir. I think this is actually another library book, but it's more historical. There are 2 books that I don't have physical copies of that I also want to get into, and that is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and I want to jump into the next part of my Shadowhunters reread, and I think that starts with Clockwork Angel, whichever one is the first one in the Infernal Devices series. That's what's next. So let's put all these books onto my TBR cart and close up this video. There we go, so that is me completely organized for May. Let me know down below if you do something like this where you run through all the books you've previously read and you set up your TBR for the next month, or just let me know what you're reading at the moment, loving it, hating it, all that kind of thing. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It's a super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!